G'day guys, Manish from Ivanhoe Cycles.
And I'm Darcy.
Today we're going to talk about the Rocky Mountain Growler. Darcy, thoughts?
Look, it's a really cool bike. It's kind of in line with the way that some other brands are going, in the geometry of it, which we can talk about a bit later on, but plus size tyres, big suspension, it's all about just big and having lots of fun on a hardtail. What struck you about this?
Well, firstly, it's a plus bike, so I don't think the term plus is used commonly, or a lot of people don't know what plus is. A plus bike is a bike that's got tyres that are between, say, 2.6 and 3 inches wide. In this case, we're actually running a 2.8 inch wide tyre, front and rear, made by a brand called WTB. So the whole premise, the whole sort of push for a plus bike is the fun factor. It's basically just like a monster truck. That those tyres just give you so much grip and so much traction that it just rolls over everything.
For sure, like you can run it at a much lower pressure. You're on wider rims. You've got so much more air underneath you that you got that much more grip to be able to do stuff that you didn't think was originally possible. But that kind of fun on a bike like this just doesn't stop at the tyres either. Like 120 mil of travel up front, which that's about maybe 20% more than your average hardtail bike. So you've got that much more travel to play with on such a slacker head tube angle, meaning descending will be much easier.
Yes, it will. Like the bike, the front end is all about stability, and that's where a lot of people tend to crash. Like the front end, they lose the front end, and it's very hard to recover from a front end slide. So
especially descending, like that looming feeling, especially people starting out mountain biking of, hell, I'm going to go over the bars right now. You'd have to be on a far greater angle on this bike to kind of get that feeling and to start going, where are my brakes, where are my brakes?
Exactly right, yeah. Well, as you touched on, like the slacker head tube angle is a real benefit. So for someone who's starting out mountain biking and happens to pick the wrong line or lands a jump incorrectly, the front end will just correct itself and just keep on going.
Yeah, totally. What I really liked about this was the drivetrain. I mean, a bike that comes in at this kind of price point, normally you see something really basic, but this has got 1x11, which falls in line with stuff way more expensive than this bike.
It's so much simpler than using a triple or even a double chainring, because you eliminate the front derailleur, front gear shifter, front gear cable. So mechanically, it's a lot simpler. It just works really well. You've got the gear range on the back, and the shifting is actually really smooth with that 11 speed.
Yeah, and look, people talk about like the downside of having a 1x11 system, and look, I totally get it. That's a little 30 tooth. That's an 11 tooth on the back, so you do spin out, but only when you get to kind of above 30k an hour, which, unless you're using it for bike paths, which you probably shouldn't be doing anyway, that's not an issue.
Yeah. Cool.
What do you think of the shocks on it, though?
The shocks are really good for a beginner mountain biker. Someone who's a lot more experienced will definitely find the shortcomings of the fork, but that said, anyone who's beginning their foray, their journey into cross-country, into mountain biking of any form, will definitely appreciate the extra travel. The forks are also really stiff, so they use a bigger diameter upper tube and leg here as well. So when you're going over like tree roots and rocks and stuff, the front end doesn't flex as much. It's a much more stiff, much more rigid front end, and that really affects, in a good way, the handling of the growler. The other cool thing about the fork is it runs a through axle on the front, so it's got a much bigger axle than what we would typically see on a bike of this level.
And I reckon it's one of the best through axle systems around. I mean,
it's so easy.
That's the simplest thing in the world.
So that's what's holding your front wheel in place.
Yep. You're not twisting anything. You don't need a 6mm Allen key like you do if you're running rock shocks. It just works.
It does. It does. Yeah. So that's a real key feature of that. It's also an air-based suspension fork. So we adjust the amount of air inside that fork depending on how much the rider weighs. Yeah.
I was going to say who the bike's for, and you mentioned, you called it a cross-country bike. Do you reckon this is really a cross-country bike, though? I mean, it's 120 mil of travel, it's slack, it's long, it is a hardtail, but I wouldn't call this a cross-country bike.
I'd say it's definitely more at the technical end of cross-country, so it can climb, it can descend. And certainly for a lot of cross-country trails, it's perfect. You can push the limits and do slightly more steeper terrain. So, for example, up at Red Hill, where things get a lot steeper and more technical, and you really want a hardtail, this is the bike I would take because of that extra bit of travel. So, so cross-country, absolutely. Borderline onto sort of more trail riding. So, so you'll definitely find the shortcomings of it at places like, you know, Bulla or Borbor even. So those big mountain places. If you're doing like Blue Square trails, the intermediate stuff, it can ride it, but you generally need a lot more confidence, a lot more skill to be able to ride this sort of bike on those trails. However, everything around here in Metro Victoria, so Listy, Red Hill, Blaw's Hill, perfect.
Yeah, totally.
So, but yeah, other than that, I mean, I think it's an awesome bike. It's fun. It's playful. It gives you tons of confidence. I can't fault it.
Look, I reckon it's the most fun you'll have in a hardtail.
Yes.
And at that price point, it just kills it. Like, we get people coming in asking for wanting to spend $1,500 on a Julie, and what I tell them is that $1,500 isn't going to get you a great Julie, but if you want something that can be as close to what you can do on a Julie, but on a hardtail, this is the way to go.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
Excellent, guys.
No worries.
Thanks for watching.
Thank you very much. Cheers.